The Dow Jones Industrial Average will leave the day up 182 as we have less than 30 seconds to the ringing of the bell. The largest private equity buyout in history crosses today a 17-year record. The RJR Nabisco deal no longer the biggest ever. HCA holds the crown, and Merck crosses 39 for the first time in 2 years. You got to go back to Vioxx to see numbers like this, and a lot in that name particularly, as the balcony is full here, the floor is full in Times Square. The closing bell rings, and the closing bell continues right now with Maria Bartiromo.
A $60 billion day on Wall Street. That is about the total value of announced M&A today announced, and the news sparked another triple-digit rally for the Dow Industrials. Earnings results from Texas Instruments and Kraft Foods expected any moment now. The bulls clearly in charge, kicking off the new week on Wall Street. The gains really taking off in the last hour of trading. The Dow Jones Industrial Average logging its fifth best day of the year. Strong earnings results from companies like Merck also fueling some of the buying. And how about that flurry of M&A? Over $60 billion worth of deals announced today alone. Most notably, the $33 billion buyout in the healthcare sector of HCA by private equity firms. We'll have more on all of the day's deals later on in the program. Check out how we're closing out the day on Wall Street with the strong showing for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which logged a gain of 1 2/3%. Good enough for a rally of 181 points, and that wasn't even the best of the day. 11,049 is where the industrial average is closing tonight. NASDAQ also strong to the tune of 2% higher, 41.5 points higher on NASDAQ to end the session at 2,061. And the S&P 500 today up 20 points. That's 1.5% at 1260. We have all of the action covered. Bob Pisani's down at the big board. Bertha Coombs is at NASDAQ. Rick Santelli at the Chicago Merck. And we kick it off with Bob Pisani on Wall Street. Bob.
Hello, Maria. We had an excellent day. In fact, a lot better than some people thought about earlier in the morning. We had very strong internals. Hopes for peace in the Middle East, good earnings, and of course very strong M&A activity. The Dow and the S&P closed over the highs of last week. Why is that important? Because we've had 3 big up days in the last 6 weeks, and none of them have produced any significant rallies a couple days after. Today's the 4th big up day. We get a little more momentum, few days on the upside here, and we'll break this trend of not having any follow through. We talked about earnings here. We had a number of companies with big earnings here today. Merck was out in the morning. They had excellent earnings. They increased their estimates for the full year. Schering-Plough had good earnings on sales of their cholesterol drug. Remember, Merck and Schering-Plough both co-market Vytorin and Zetia. American Express came out in the middle of the day. They too beat the earnings estimates. Ken Cherneau, the CEO, saw record spending on Amex cards. Also, we mentioned M&A deals. Advanced Micro Devices in a deal saying they're buying graphic chip maker ATI Technologies for $5.4 billion. Yes, they could have done it a few months ago, and they would have helped a lot because their stock would have been a lot better. They're offering many, many shares there for their stock for that particular deal. But Texas Instruments, we're waiting for that. That came off of the lows. National Semitech and Broadcom also doing a little bit better today, although Broadcom a little bit of a concern there. Home builders finally to the upside. Those stocks too sold off dramatically last week. Had a nice comeback here today. Let's go over to Bertha. She's standing by over at the NASDAQ.
And in fact, Bertha, we've got the best gain in 3 weeks, right?
We have the best gain, but still the NASDAQ not at the highs of last week, and a lot of traders really looking for real follow-through here. They're very relieved to see this kind of relief rally today, but now they want to see if we can at least hold on to this tomorrow, even if we don't push higher, that people don't sell out. The big caps leading the way, those small caps very strong as well. An upgrade over at Citigroup boosted Dell, and that had its ripple effects among the big cap players. Oracle, one of the few that traded to the downside, as one of its executives is doing a very large amount of planned selling, and some of that starting to take effect. ATI Technologies in the headlines, of course. Bob told you about it. Maria told you about it. They are being acquired for $5.4 million. That values the shares at about just over $20 a share. There's a breakup fee in there, but the company says we're not getting any rival bids from Intel. Meantime, lots of rumors of chips in play. NVIDIA is one of the ones that people talked about today, possibly being in play now that AMD went after the folks over at ATI. They said, hey, they're not interested in a merger right now. And M Systems Flash put out a comment saying that they're not commenting about rumors about the fact that they may be in play. The Street looking at them saying perhaps they do protest too much. SanDisk reports after the bell any minute now. 44 cents is the number that folks are looking at on the bottom line. That rose ahead of its earnings. And Amazon will be reporting tomorrow and was up today on a report in Advertising Age that it may start a movie download business starting in August. We may hear more about that, or certainly there'll be questions on their earnings call tomorrow afternoon. Right now, let's move on over to Sharon and the NYMEX.
Thanks very much. I'll take it, Bertha. And
Okay.
while equities have had a stellar day, the metals market has been melting down. Let's get to CNBC's Rick Santelli. He's in Chicago with more from the Merc. Rick?
Well, you know, there's so many variables, whether you're looking at commodities in general or breaking it out into energy and metals. Of course, China's economy and the fact they're trying to slow it. The Fed may be moving the magnifying glass.
Thanks so much. Meanwhile, oil prices pulling back earlier today, selling spurred by rising hope of a near-term quelling of the violence in the Middle East. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, there she is, coming off of the jet, stopping in Beirut today to kick off of a bigger U.S. diplomatic push for a settlement to the crisis. Checking light sweet crude today, prices finished at $75.05 a barrel. Meanwhile, gasoline prices hitting their highest level today in a quarter of a century. That's what happened last week. According to the latest Lundberg survey, the average price for regular self-serve gasoline jumped to $3.15 a gallon. That's even higher than last year's Katrina-related spike. Checking prices nationwide, take a look at where gasoline is in your neck of the woods. Drivers in New York are paying the highest at $3.31 a gallon. Prices in Houston and Phoenix averaging around the lowest at $2.94 a gallon. Well, it was a big day for the Dow Industrials, that's for sure, rallying to close above the 11,000 mark again. Joining me now for a closer look at today's moves, Jim Swanson, Chief Investment Strategist with MFS Investment Management, and Anthony Chan, Managing Director and Chief Economist at JP Morgan Private Client Services. Gentlemen, nice to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Think this rally is sustainable?